Okay, we need to lower the volume. Yeah, besides muting, you have to lower the volume. We probably put it loud. You just don't mind everything. Oh, that's right. Okay. So the Gemara says the Mishnah has gone over tough for Yom Kippurim since Tvicha is not a Chiyav Misa on Yom Kippur like it is on Shabbos. They won't be coming with Rabbi. There is a Chiyav Malchus for a violating Yom Kippur. The Kaimel on then like Mishalom. And for the Gemara, Amri Yamani Reb Meir he Amr like Mishalom. And as Rashi says, two of them say falsely that Reuben owes Shimon 200 zuz, and these Edom are Zaymin. So they falsely tried to make Reuben pay 200 zuz. Like they get Malchus for saying false edus, but Umashalman they still have to pay their Chiv Zaymin, which is 200. Shaloy Hashem Hamavin de Malchus Mavin de Shlum. The law that brings in the Malchus is not the same halacha that says they have to pay, and therefore you say Loika Umashalim. So Ibazoi. Over here as well, even though they're getting Malchus for violating Yom Kippur, they will still pay the Daled Vahei. So tomorrow you have Meir, Afilu Tabach b'Shabbos. If you hold a Reb Meir who holds Loika Mishalom, that's because Reb Meir doesn't hold of Kamalei b'Derabim at all. Therefore, even if you taka were over a Chiyav Misa Daraisa, like Tvicha b'Shabbos, you should also be mechuyev to pay. And our Mishnah says that if you're Tabach b'Shabbos, you're potter. So therefore. No, our mission doesn't say that beferish, but we'll see in a second. V'chitema loika mishalom islay, mesa mishalom leslay. So I think our mission does say tavach b'Shabbos is potter, right? Let's see if this is first in the Mishnah. To be 100% sure. We will refresh our memory. Said the Mishnah, ganav u'macher b'Shabbos. Does it say beferish ganav tavach b'Shabbos? No, it doesn't. But it only says u'macher b'Shabbos, not tavach b'Shabbos. So there's an assumption that the Mishnah holds that Gonav, the Tavach, Shabbos will be potter. The problem is, if you're saying that our Mishnah is following the Shita of Reb Meir holds that you don't say Kamalei b'Derabim either. And if you're going to tell me, not so, if you're going to tell me, he does agree to the principle of Kamalei b'Derabim, but that's only where there's a Chiv Misa. But now where there's a Chiv Malchus, that's not true. Velois. That's so. I'm going to prove to you that Reb Meir holds that when it comes to Misa, it's Misa Mishalem as well. But Tanya we learned Gana v'Tavach b'Shabbos, someone who stole and shechted on Shabbos, or Gana v'Tavach l'Avodah Zarah, which is also a Chiyav Misa, or Gana v'Shar HaNiskal U'Tfachai. Now that's a different parsha. He sold the Shar Nifkal and shechted it. That's because it's also Rano. That's not a question of Kamalei b'Derabim. The halacha is mishalim arba b'chamisha divrei Reb Meir. So you see clearly, even by a case of tabach, even by a case of misa, Reb Meir holds you don't say kamalei b'Derabim, and there would be a chiyav of daled v'hei. So oibazoi, how could you say that Reb Meir is the time of our Mishnah? Our Mishnah is mashma that gonna b'tavach b'Shabbos would be potter, yet Reb Meir holds it would be chayiv. The chaman point. So Gemara Amri, that's not a good raya. The brayta that we just quoted is not a good raya. Bar minadahi. Besides that, brayta don't count that in as a raya. Why? The itmer Allah. Rabbi Yaakov. Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Rabbi Yirmiyah. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish. Rabbi Avin. Rabbi Loi. B'chol chaburosim shmeid Rabbi Yochanan Amri. Rabbi Avin and Rabbi Loi and the whole chavadaya in the name of Rabbi Yochanan said, you know why over there by Tabach b'Shabbos you're chayiv? Because the guy of himself didn't do the tficha. He was miman a shliach to do the tficha. And therefore there's a shliach. So the shliach is going to be chayiv misa because then shliach levar avera. But the ganav is going to be chayiv dal vei. Fact Gemara, why would the ganav be chayiv dal vei? The same ain't shliach levar avera. Why you don't kill the shliach? He shouldn't be liable. V'chizeh choyte v'zem is chayiv. Can you say that this person shechted it and the ganav should be chayiv? As Rashi says, v'chishliach choyte v'shalech mischayiv v'tashlumei dal vei. Now that's that line I just read is not relevant yet. So why is it that if I appointed a shliach to do the tfichu mechira, or to do the tvicha at least, why am I chayiv dal vei? Amarava shiny hacha, because the Torah teaches us that although everywhere else ain't shlichul varvera, and therefore he's not chayiv for the tvicha on Shabbos, but legabi dal vei by tvicha mechira, the Torah is megalatas that works al yidei shliach. Tamarka utvachoy umecharoy. The Torah is comparing tvicha to mechira. Ma mechira al yidei achar. Just like mechira, you cannot do a mechira if there's not another party involved. There's got to be a buyer. And that's where Rashi says, "Ein mechira el b'shnayim moichaber lekeach." Af tvicha al yidei achar. Here in this pasuk, the Torah is teaching us that even though normally you say in shliach levarveya, if you make a shliach for tvicha, you're going to be chayiv dal v'hei, and that's from this brisa. This brisa that says ganav v'tavach with Shabbos is speaking about an unusual case. Avada, if the ganav shechted on Shabbos, avada is going to be potter because of kamei b'derabinei. But if he paid somebody else to do it, then he has no chivah Shabbos because for that you say shliach levarveya. But he is mechuyev in dalad v'hei because the halach of tvicha, Torah is magala that you have to pay dalad v'hei even though it was done through a shliach.
But all the are we talking about
Yom Kippur doesn't have to be like that because Yom Kippur Meir holds loika u'mashalim.
Why b'shar on the school?
Shrinus has nothing to do with Kamah B'drabineh because it's Israel no.
Yeah, but here it says that he does pay. So why does he pay?
Why? Let's see.
Why it says that he pays?
We can't have Shrinus go v'taf b'shalom. So we'll see. That's right. The Gemara is going to discuss that later. Reb Meir holds of Kameh B'drabineh by Misa and Mamayin, but he does not say Kameh B'drabineh by Malchus and Mamayin. That's the Gemara's position at this time. So the Gemara challenged, how could you say that he agrees to Kameh B'drabineh from the Bryce over here? You see, he doesn't know the Kameh B'drabineh because that was a case of Misa and Mamayin. The Gemara said, no, it's a case where the way it was done, the Ganev will not be Chayv Misa. Correct. But our Mishnah is not al yidei acher. Our Mishnah is speaking to Yid himself. Therefore, Ganav v'tavach l'Shabbos would be potter. But Ganav v'tavach l'Mekippurim would be chayiv because loikum mishal.
Probably because most time, one of the shintam the group, most tvicha doesn't have by every person. Not every person could do a tvicha, so that's why maybe the tvicha has.
Okay, listen, Misham, we're going to write. There's a Talmud Bava, Talmud Shalmi, there'll be a Talmud Chaim. Right? Okay. Okay, gewaltig. Sagt mal, the Rebbe Shmuel Tana. The Rebbe Shmuel says, "Oy lerabbis es a shliach." You know how we know that even through a shliach, the God of his chayv on tvicha, because utvachai oy mechar. The oy tells us that even if a shliach does it, he's chayv. You know. So where does it say oy? So
it says here tvucha oy mechura. Before in the Gemara it says.
It says why? Because the guy thought he was potter because he heard a shliach and when he told him he was chayv, he said oy mechura. So that's where it comes from because he made a mistake. Because Zok the Gemara, the veichitzki yitana tachas l'rabbis is a shliach. It says chamisha bakar yishalim tachas hashar, barbitzayin tachas aseh. Okay, so now our maskon is Reb Meir holds a loikum mishalim, but ein miso mishalim. Maskef law marzutra. Franklin is your kasha. Mi kamidi. Idu as azach. Is there such a thing? Dilo over ihu loy mechayev. If you would have done this ma'ase yourself, you wouldn't be chayev. If you would have shechted on Shabbos as the ganev, you would not be chayev in dal vei. V'av shliach mechayev. And if the shliach does it for you, you'll be chayev. How could a shliach do more for you than you could possibly do for yourself? Amar Rabashi, you avada you are chayev. Avada you're chayev if you shechted on Shabbos. Hasam lav mishum deloy mechayevu. The reason why if he shechts on Shabbos he's not chayev in dal vei is not because there's no chiv dal vei. It's because there's an external thing that's telling us we can't enforce the din. And not only that, as Toys has told us at the top, there's even a chiv b'dei shamayim still to pay. So therefore it's not a kasha. If it's speaking by teveach al yidei acher. So we need to understand what does the Brisa say. The Tanya we learned. Let me go back a little bit. The Tanya we learned. Gana v'tavach b'Shabbos, and we learned why is he chayiv because it's speaking by teveach al yidei acher, so there's no chiv misa. But in this same brisa, where a mayor says you're chayiv, the chum say you're potter. Why would the chum say you're potter from down there? The shliach did it. The shliach is mechuyev misa, but the ganav himself is not. So my timer, they're abon and the padre. So Amri man chachamim Rav Shimon. You know the chachamim are Rav Shimon, and now this is going to answer the shaila of the Isra no as well. The Amar shchita she'eni ruuya lo yishma shchita. Rav Shimon holds that if you do a shchita and the shchita does not matter the animal lachila, that's not called a shchita at all. Does not have the classification of a shchita. You're only mechuyev dalvei if you do a shchita. If you shoot the animal with a bullet, it would not be a tficha that would be mechayiv you with dalvei. So the Rabbanan hold, since if it was shechted on Shabbos, it cannot be eaten. This shchita was in fact not matter the animal to be eaten, and therefore shchita sheniru lashma shchita. It's not a shchita, and you're not going to be mechuyev dalvei. For the Gemara, I don't understand. B'shlam avodah zara b'shar niskol, I can understand why it's a shchita sheniru because it's going to be also to eat, and the shchita does not matter. But if you shechted on Shabbos, it's not mutter to eat. Ella Shabbos shchita ru'uyihi. If you shech on Shabbos, avada to shchita ru'uyihi, because it's matir the basa to be eaten under certain circumstances. That none we learned hashoichet b'Shabbos u'b'yom HaKippurim af apisham eschayev v'navshoy. Even though there's a chiv misa for doing this illegal shchita say kshera. It's a good shchita. So how could you use the shchita of Rab Shimon that shchita sheniru lishma shchita to say that this is not considered a tficha? Avadi, this is considered a shchita because it's machshir the animal to be eaten.
For a sick person, he needs to have la the shechta because
if you shall, but in this case he didn't. In this case we're talking about a shchita asura.
Yeah, so you see that shoich b'Shabbos is shchita kshayra. This one,
but shoichet l'refuah, or here in this case even regular. This brayso doesn't say l'refuah. No matter what, if you shechted on Shabbos, aval pishum is chayiv v'nafesh shchita sekshera. Amri zok the Gemara sovelok Rabbi Yochanan Asan. We hold like Rabbi Yochanan Asan. The Tanan, there's a three-way machlokes how you treat someone who prepared food through a violation of Shabbos. So instead of talking about shchita, we're talking about bishul, but it's the same thing. It would have the same halacha. Hamavachel b'Shabbos b'shoigig. If someone cooked on Shabbos b'shoigig, yoichel, he's allowed to eat it. Anybody's allowed to eat it, even on Shabbos. B'mezid, but if he cooked b'mezid lo yoichel, he can't eat it. And Rashi explains to us that lo yoichel means boy beyoim v'hu adin la'achera. Boy b'yoim shouldn't be eaten, but Motzei Shabbos avada you're allowed to eat. Divrei Reb Meir. So Reb Meir holds that clearly shchita b'Shabbos is a shchita ru'uya. Because if it was b'shoigig, this is not b'shoigig. If it was b'shoigig, eat right away. But even if it's b'mezid, you can eat about the Shabbos. So clearly the shchita is shchita ru'uya. I'm saying Divrei Reb Meir. I didn't talk about Rabbi Yochanan. According to Reb Meir, it's shchita ru'uya. Rabbi Yehuda Omer, it's a little bit more stringent. B'shoigig yoichel b'motzei Shabbos. B'shoigig, it could be eaten Motzei Shabbos. So he's mocked, but you can't eat it on Shabbos. B'shoigig, you or anybody else can eat it Motzei Shabbos. But b'mezid lo yoichel olam is b'mezid, the person who violated Aveira and was mavashel b'mezid or was shoichet b'mezid, he will never be allowed to eat this meat. But others are allowed to eat this meat. So once again, it's a shchita ru'uya. But Rabbi Yochanan Sandler, who's the most machmir, says, Omer b'shoigig yoichel or yeyachel l'motzei Shabbos lacher v'loyloi. If it was shoigig, he's still prohibited forever from eating it, although it's still a shchita ru'uya, because motzei Shabbos others would be allowed to eat it. But b'mezid lo yeyachel le'lomis loyloi v'loy lacher. So according to Rabbi Yochanan Sandler, if in order to prepare food you were over a malacha d'oraisa, it's going to be usher. So therefore, if you shecht it, it's a shchita shein ru'uya. So according to Rabbi Yochanan Sandler, we would understand why the Rabbanan of the Brisa said that you're chayiv. Says that you're potter, because it's not potter because of kamlei b'derabimine, because we said it's speaking b'shaycha yidayacher. But the reason why you're potter is because it's a shchita she'en yeruya, because a shchita done b'mezid on Shabbos is not a good shchita. Beautiful. My time with Rabbi Yochanan Sandler. Where did Rabbi Yochanan Sandler get this chumra gedola from that a malacha done on Shabbos for the sake of preparing food, the food will never allow to be eaten. Like Reb Chia darshaned at the entrance of the Benesia, of the house of the Nasi. And it says in the pasuk, "Ushmartim es haShabbos ki kodesh shilachem." You should watch the Shabbos because it's holy to you. Ma kodesh asur b'achila, just like kodesh kochim is asur b'achila, af ma'aser Shabbos asur b'achila, and that's how you know it from. It's treated like a korban. Correct the Gemara. Ima kodesh asur b'ano, af ma'aser Shabbos asur b'ano. By the same token, you should say that if someone shechted on Shabbos, that meat is asur b'ano. You shouldn't even be able to serve it to a dog. Talmud Leimer lachem. It does say lachem ki kodesh yi lachem. It's kodesh, but it's also lachem. So it's a balance. So lachem yehei. Correct the Gemara. If it's ma'aser Shabbos, is also yachal afilu b'shoigig. So why does Rabbi Yochanan say that b'shoigig you are allowed to eat ma'aser Shabbos? Lachem. It's ma'aser Shabbos. Talmud Leimer mechaleleha ma'ashumas. Who is this pasuk referring to? It's referring to a mechaleleha who is ma'ashumas. That means he did it b'mezid. B'mezid amati lach v'loy b'shoigig. Period. And that takes us to the end of the sugya. So at the end of the day, the brayso that there's a machlokes by shoichet the Shabbos if you're chayiv or potter. Reb Meir holds you chayiv because it was speaking b'shoichet al yidei achayim. So even though Reb Meir does hold of kamei b'derabim that there's no misa and mamayin, but here the shliach is chayiv misa and the person, the ganav is chayiv the dalvei. The reason why the Rabbanan say that it's potter has nothing to do with kamei b'derabim because he didn't do it. The shliach did it. It's all because the shechita is the shechita shein ruya that he holds like Rabbi Yochanan Sandler that will never allow this meat to be eaten by anybody because it says ki kodesh shilachem. Zakmar pligi ba Reb Achav Ravina. So some of the Reb Achav and Ravina maybe how to understand Rabbi Yochanan Sandler. I think Chadam or Ma'aser Shabbos Doiraisa. One learns like we just said that Rabbi Yochanan Sandler learns that Midoiraisa a Ma'aser Shabbos is Osir. The Chadam or Ma'aser Shabbos to Rabbanan, and the other one held that Ma'aser Shabbos is only the Rabbanan Asur B'achil. Mandam Doiraisa Kidamar, like we just said, we have Psukim Kodesh Shilachem. Mandam Doirabanan Amar Kodesh who Kodesh Vein Ma'aser Kodesh. He learns from the pasuk that no, Ma'aser Shabbos Midoiraisa is not Asur; it's only a Gzeira D'Rabbanan. Zok to Gemara. Now, if it's Asur Midorabanan, I don't know if that's called a Shechita Shein Ruya anymore. I'm not sure if that classifies. When Shimon said Shechita Shein Ruya Lashma Shechita, is that only if Midoraisa it's not a good Shechita, or only if it's Midorabanan? So let's see what the Gemara says. Bishlama, no one Midoraisa. Bishlama, if you hold that Midoraisa Ma'aser Shabbos is Asur B'achila, Amtu Lahachi, therefore, Pater Rabbanan. The Rabbanan says you're Pater because that's a Shechita Shein Ruya, according to Reb Shimon. El Lamanda Amar, the Rabbanan, if you hold that Mikradin, Midoraisa, even a Ma'aser Shabbos is mutter, it's just Midorabanan that said don't eat it. Amai Pater Rabbanan. Why did the Rabbanan say that Shachat, the Shabbos, is going to be Pater? It's a Shechita Ruya. Even according to Reb Shimon, it's a Shechita Ruya because Midoraisa is a good Shechita. And with the Gemara Shaira, so let's stop for a moment and let's go back to the Brisa so we can see it in time and get clarity. The Brisa says, the Tanya of Tanya Ganav V'Tavach V'Shabbos, they're not arguing because by Ganav V'Tavach V'Shabbos, in fact, the Rabbanan agree that you will be chayiv because it's a shchita ru'uya because it's only also to eat it midrabanan and there's no kamei v'drabim because as we said it was tavach hayideyacher. But ganav v'tavach l'avaydizara and ganav sh'raniska v'tavchay, there in these two cases the Rabbanan say it's potter. Why? Because that is a shchita shein ru'uya. If you shechted l'avaydizara, that's asur b'achila, and sh'raniska is going to be asur, and therefore the Rabbanan hold your potter. Why is Reb Meir mechayiv? Zok to Gemara, shoichet l'avodah zara. When you shechted it for avodah zara, even the shochet b'porta, the moment you shechted it, the moment you did even a little cut, asher, it's already asur. It's already asur because it was shoichet l'avodah zara. Yeah, idach. But the rest of the shchita isura nohu v'lav demor katav. So why, according to Meir, are you chayiv? Yes, it is. So Rashi and Tosfos have a little bit of a difference of opinion over here. Why is it that shoichet l'avodah zara, even the shachet b'porta asra? The moment you even broke its skin, even before you got a het or shchita, because the shchita is not mattered until you finish shechting the roiv beis simonim. But the moment that you even let a little bit of blood out, there's already a chiv. It's already considered asur l'avodah zarah, and therefore, by the time you completed the shchita, it was Israel already. So you wouldn't be mechuyev daled v'hei for that. So why is it that as soon as you do a little cut, you're chayiv for avodah zarah? Zok Rashi, kiven the shachat b'porta itzira mishum zivchei mesim. Why is that? The kasol kadaitach yeshno l'shchita mitchila v'atzoy. There's a machloikis. What shchita, when shchita occurs. Do you say that every last bit of your cutting from the moment you start until you hit Roy Beis Simonim, that's all considered part of the act of shchita? Or no? Until you reach the threshold of Roy Beis, it's not a shchita, it's thumb cutting. The shchita is the actual moment that you cross the threshold from before Roy Beis to after Roy Beis. So since we hold Dr. Rashi that yesh no shchita mitchila batzoif, therefore the beginning of the shchita is also called shchita, so it was called that you shechted it l'avodah zarah, even though you didn't finish the shchita. With chilasa nesra, the moment you started the shchita, you're already answering this animal mishum zivchei mesim. I say that triggers the chiyuv dal v'hei as well, because it's also shchita there at the beginning. No, because in tashlum and dal v'hei, there's a pasuk that says it has to be completed. It's exeres hakosem. The tav chay means kulay ba'in. Come on. So therefore, there's a pasuk that says by tficha, it's not a tficha to be mechaybu dal vei till the end of the shchita, but it is still considered shchita, and therefore the moment you cut the neck a little bit, you're already going to be chay. That is how Tosfos learns. However, I'm sorry, that's how Rashi learns. I apologize. Tosfos learns keeping the shachar b'porta asra afilu l'mandama and shchita l'b'soif. Ne'aseres b'porta kam. Even if you hold that it's not a shchita until you do the last bit of going over the roiv, and that's the shchita. So come to Chaysh, you didn't shecht it. So if you didn't shecht it, why is it become usher as soon as you cut the skin? Dr. Gemara, because Isser Tali b'maisa v'loy b'shchita. The Isser of zivchei meisim of shchita l'avodah zarah is not a halachic shchita. It's the fact that you're cutting it. It's the maisa. So we have a difference of opinion of what you have to do to be mekayim davera of shchita l'avodah zarah. According to both agree, it's just at the beginning. But Rashi holds you need a ma'aser shchita, therefore you need to hold yesh no shchita mitchila v'soif. Tosfos holds you don't need a shchita, you just need a ma'aser. Therefore, who cares if the shchita doesn't come to later?
Don't hold from the haluchas mazar of shnaim. So as soon as man get in any kind of master shchita, that is shen get in the.
I hear, yeah. Zok to Gemara, they don't subscribe to hilchas shchita. Okay, Zok to Gemara. Am I patri Rabbanon? Ashai Rabbanon Sheniskol. Reb Meir, am I mechayev shechad avodah zarah? Given the shechad b'porta asra, idich isuranahu v'lav demari katavach. And for the Gemara, Amarava, very simple. This guy was a lamdan. He was a lamdan she'oived avodah zarah. He said, "Be'omer b'gmar zvicha who oived." He said, "I'm not being mechavel avodah zarah. I'm only being mechavel avodah zarah by the last part of it." Therefore, he was able to manipulate the situation so that the chiv of Dal Vei comes at precisely the same moment as the chiv of avodah zarah. Why does Reb Meir hold that by shechting Ashar Niskol, you're chayiv, it's Isur Ana. So it's Lav Demore Katavach. Zok to Gemara, Amar Rava, Halchal Mayaskinon, Kigain Shemosroi L'Shomer. Listen to what the case was. This animal was given over to a shomer. Meaning the owner of the animal gave the animal to a shomer. V'hizik b'vei shomer v'hu b'vei shomer. Under the shomer's watch, this animal became ashar hamuid and killed the nikmardina b'vei shomer. Technically, the shomer has already damaged the animal, is responsible for the damage done to this animal. He didn't watch it properly, and now the buyer is going to be deprived of the animal. Can the shomer give back this animal and say Areish Chalaf Anecha? He could, because it's a hezek sheni nikr. There is a halachic condemnation of this animal that has to be killed, but the animal itself is physically unchanged, and therefore the shomer would have been able to return this animal and he would have been scot-free. Comes along this Ganav, and now he steals the animal from the Shomer and he shechs. So he caused the damage to the Shomer. So we're not talking about the Ganav vis-a-vis the owner. We're talking about the Ganav vis-a-vis the Shomer. By stealing and shechting his animal, now the Shomer can no longer return the animal with a haresh or cholapanecha, and now you're causing the hezek to the Shomer, and that's what we're talking about. So yes, it's asur bano, but the Shomer has value because it's a davar gorim l'mam, and he could have used it to pay back and been scot-free from liability. So therefore, you need a combination of shitas to make this work. For Meir Savalo Kreb Yaakov, Savalo Kreb Shimon. We're relying on the shita of Reb Yaakov and the shita of Reb Shimon. And let's see how this works. Savalo Kreb Yaakov the Amar. Reb Yaakov said that Af Misha Nigmar Dinoi Hechzira Yishaymer Lebai Muchser. It's not everybody who holds like that. It's only Reb Yaakov, and we actually had this machlokes a couple of prakim ago that holds that even though it was condemned to death in Bezdin, the shomer can still give it back to the bailim and say Areshal Chalafanecha. As Rashi says, Muchser v'Omer le Areshal Chalafanecha. Nimtzas. So it comes out, even though this shor is an Isser Hana, and therefore it's worthless, but Lagabit Shomer Gorim Lamamanu. It definitely causes a lot of loss to the shomer if you steal it from him. The Chosman Kayim, as long as this animal is still in existence, shomer poiter is atzmai boy. It has a great value to the shomer, and therefore if him yoyved shalom doma. If shomer does not have this actual animal, it's going to cost him a lot of money. V'savalok Rab Shimon, and we also need the shita of Rab Shimon, who says the Omar Davar Hagorim L'Mammon K'Mammon Dam. This is not Mammon, Isra no. It's Gorim L'Mammon. It will cause a damage if I don't have it. Who said that's considered money? That's going to be Mechayiv Midal V'Hei. According to Rab Shimon, that's considered money, and therefore I'm going to be Mechuyev Dal V'Hei. So using this combination of Rab Yaakov and Rab Shimon, we can justify why it is that there will be a chiyuv, and that would be the shita from Meir. Did not be learned. Rab Shimon Aimer. What if someone said Harei Olai Oil, and he has this animal here, and now a ganav came and stole it from me? Maybe he should be put from kefil. I'm not re'ayu. This is an animal hektish. Nevertheless, Rab Shimon knows the ganav is chayiv kefil. As Rashi says, chayiv l'shalom kefil. Avagav delav tidei. This doesn't belong to the owner. This animal, it'll the hektish. So therefore, you should say re'ayu v'lo hektish. You shouldn't pay kefil. So even the gorim l'mamanu, if this animal disappears, the person who said arei ala oila now has to replenish it and come up with another animal. That's enough to create a chiv kefil. The mis biyadai boy l'shlume. Therefore, kididei damya lagabi, that value added, that because it's causing me to have to buy another one, there'll be a chiv kefil. Alma davar gorim l'mamayin k'mamin dami. Amar Rav Kana, Zok Rav Kana. Amrita l'shmai to kamei Rav Zvit Minardo. I told this to Rav Zvit Minardo. And I asked them as follows: Mi motzis mukmis masnis in Kreb Meir v'loy Kreb Shimon. How could you tell our Mishnah? Our Mishnah says that loyku mishalim, but in mesu mishalim, and we still learn our Mishnah like Kreb Meir v'loy Kreb Shimon, not like Kreb Shimon. V'katani seifa. The end of our Mishnah says Rab Shimon poiter b'shnei elu. What does Rab Shimon say at the end of our Mishnah? Let's take a look back on Ayin Amar Aleph. Our Mishnah quotes a whole bunch of cases, and on which cases does Rab Shimon argue? B'shnei elu. He only argues on the very last two cases of Ashoichet Chulun Ba'Zara and Ashoichet V'nim B'Treifa. It's only there where Rab Shimon says you're potter because it's the Shkina Shenivuya. Isn't it mashma that he agrees to the whole rest of the Mishnah? So for the Gemara, how could you say the Mishnah is going like Rab Meir? It has to be going like Rab Shimon as well, because Rab Shimon clearly says that he agrees to the rest of the Mishnah. Meaning he'll be moided to the rest of the Mishnah, and he doesn't say loika u'mishalim. Zok to Gemara, Amar loy. All it means is machlal the moide b'tabuch u'machar l'refuah l'klavim. Rav Shimon's just talking about the very last halacha mentioned in the Mishnah. Rather, the last halacha in the Mishnah, he's moide, but by refuah l'klavim that you're chayiv, he just argues where there's a shchita sheneruya. Zok to Gemara v'ayter. Very interesting shaila. What was the case? He stole from his father while his father was still alive. There's a chiv kefil. Then he was tavuch u'machar. There's a chiv tzvicha mechira. After he's already kapaskin, he's chayiv dalvei. Then his father died. So therefore, he still has to pay the Dalvei to the estate. What happens if Gonav Shor Shal Shnei Shutvim? There was an ox that was owned by two partners, and this fellow comes and steals it. And before Adam came, he went and was murdered to one of them. So that guy murdered B'Knas Potter. But for the other guy, Shchai, Mao, does it say Chamisha Bakar Amar Rachmana, and therefore Veloy Chamisha Chatzoi Bakar? He definitely doesn't have to pay 5 half bakars because he's only mechuyev to one shutuf. Dilma Chamisha Bakar Amar Rachmana, Hafila Chamisha Chatzoi Bakar, and therefore the shutuf that he was murdered to, he will be potter to pay the dalad vei, and the shutuf that he was not murdered to, he will be chayiv to pay the dalad vei. Amalei Chamisha Bakar Amar Rachmana, Veloy Chamisha Chatzoi Bakar. So he paskined, it will not work. If that's the case, Gonav Mishal Oviv, the Tavachu Mochar, the Achgach Mesav. Our Mishnah, Mishalam Tashlumei Above Chamisha. Correct Gemara, why? The Hahacha, Kivin the Mesaviv, once his father died, now he's a shutuf. He might have other brothers, he has to pay it into the estate, but part of it is his. Kivin the Mesaviv, Kimoisha Kodam, Vihaida, Lachat Ben Dami, Vikatani, Mishalam Tashlumei Above Chamisha. So how could you say that you don't pay Chamisha Chatzoi Bakar? In the case of the Mishnah, that's exactly what he's paying. He's paying Chamisha Chatzoi Bakar. Omerlei, so he answered, no. Hacha b'may askinin kagoyin she'amad bedin, kagoyin she'amad aviv bedin. It's only if the Shas Hamad bedin, he was mechuyev to pay everybody. So therefore, b'Shas Hamad bedin, it was not Chamisha Chatzoi Bakar, it was Chamisha Bakar and Gansen. And therefore, there's a chiyuv for him to pay. Once his father dies, so then now he's part of the estate. But avadi the chiyuv was to pay for the whole thing. So is that so? So you're going to agree to me that if there was no Hamad Bedin, in fact, the Hamad Bedin didn't occur until after his father died. So now the award is going to be only an award of Chamisha Chatzoi Bakar, because he's not going to have to pay himself. Are you going to tell me that he's Potter and Ganzen, even from paying his brothers? If that's the case, why did our Mishnah look for such a far away case to give an example of a case where he would not pay Dalad Vei? Adatani Sefer Gonav Mishal Umeis, and he died. And then the Achakach Tavu Chamachar, Ein Masham Tashlum Bava Chamisha, which is going to be the next Mishnah. I don't need to go to such a far case. I don't need to go to a case where the Tficha was after his father died. Even in the same case as our Mishnah, if the Tficha was before his father died, he'll still have a case of Potter. When? If there was no Hamad Bedin. Nifloik Bididei. That you pay Dalad Vei Kishamad Bedin. That's if there was already Hamad Bedin before his father died, and therefore the Chiv of Bezin was on Chamisha full Bakar. Avaloyamad Bedin. But if he wasn't Hamad Bedin, and now Bezin after his father dies have to be Mechayiv him, Chatzoi Bakar, then Ein Masham the Shlumei Bava Chamisha. Elamai, you're wrong. Zaktamar, no. Amaloi Hachanami. That's exactly the halacha. So why didn't it say that this case of the Sefer? Zaktamar, because it wanted to stick to parallel cases. I did not have Reisha Gonav Mishal Aviv. The Tavuch Machar v'Achagach Meis Aviv. Therefore, Nasav Sefer Nami Gonav Mishal Aviv v'Meis Aviv v'Achatavuch Machar. But Avada, even if the father died before Hamad Bedin, even though the Tzvicha Mechir was in the life of the father, but there was no Hamad Bedin, Avada, he would not be Mechuy. Letzafra, in the morning, they woke up again. Amalei, he said, I changed my mind. In fact, he would be Chay. If he stole from two shutfim, and he made Tzvicha Mechir from two shutfim, and he was Moida, he will pay the half. I'm sorry?
You have a dream.
What happened overnight? The Gemara discussed it. The Gemara actually asked what changed. The Gemara asked what changed. We'll get to in a minute. What changed? Why didn't I change my mind in the morning? And we have Achlekes Rashi and Tosfos what this next line means. Is the Achol Bisr the Torah. I didn't eat meat. If you eat meat, that's the good Fashtain. As Tosfos says, Shari B'Tainisaya. But Rashi says, no, it doesn't mean eat meat. It means like the time dover. Eating the beef is a term for chewing it up well. Chewing it up and analyzing it well. I didn't have a chance to analyze it well. Tosfos says, I'm astonished. So what's the difference between the Reisha and the Sefer? Why is it that if you were only Tavach Umachar after your father died, why there am I Potter? Why isn't there a Chiyav of Chamisha Chatzoi Bakar? Didn't you just say that there is a Chiyav of Chamisha Chatzoi Bakar? Amalei Reisha Karina Beit V'Tavchai Kula B'Yisura. You're right. You could pay Chatzi Bakar, but the Tvicha has to be a Tvicha of Isser. So in the Reisha, V'Tavchai Kula B'Yisura. The entire Tvicha was Isser because his father was still alive. Kula did in the Shaila of the Shushotfim, when he shechted it, it was completely B'Isser. It's only later on when it comes to the payment that it's Chatzai Bakar. Sefer like Karina Beit Tavchai Kula B'Yisura, the payment could be done with the Chatzi Bakar. That it could be done. But the Tvicha has to be done when it's a complete Isser, like everybody involved. Okay, we'll stop here, Be'ez Hashem, and we will mamshech tomorrow.
Good stories.
Okay, we like good stories.
Wat gaan we met the